the saga of how the unredacted version of over 250,000 diplomatic cables obtained by Wikileaks got out on the internet goes on. Wikileaks has filed a lawsuit against The Guardian and released a statement on Twitter saying a Guardian journalist has, in a previously undetected act of gross negligence or malice and in violation of a signed security agreement with The Guardian's editor-in-chief, Alan Rudsbridger, disclosed top-secret decryption passwords to the entire unredacted Wikileaks Cablegate archive. Now, we've already spoken to the State Department and commenced pre-litigation action. We will issue a formal statement in due course. So the U.S. State Department has confirmed that they did get the heads up from the organization, but they said that they have no plans to cooperate with them. So it could be negligence on the part of Wikileaks, could be negligence on the part of The Guardian, or who knows who else. But the mainstream media has been quick to jump on this story, soak up the drama to put Julian Assange into the spotlight again. And the unfortunate result of this coverage is what's being overlooked, what the cables actually reveal. And a recently made public State Department cable provides evidence that U.S. troops executed at least 10 Iraqi civilians and then called it an airstrike to destroy the evidence. Among the dead were 4 women and 5 children. Now, autopsies performed in the Iraqi city of Tikrit showed that all the dead had been handcuffed and shot in the head. It's a gruesome tragedy, and yet nobody wants to pay any attention to it. Joining me to discuss this is Kevin Gostola, civil liberties blogger at Firedog Lake. Kevin, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but were you one of the first people that, that actually spotted this in the cables?
Yeah, as part of the hashtag venture that WikiLeaks invited people to participate in, I was going through the cables and I happened to find this communications log.
So once you actually put it out there, at least tweeted about it, then you monitored the media attention. And at least from what I could tell, it was pretty obvious to me who actually did pick up on it. People that are worried about civil liberties, people like Glenn Greenwald out there. But have you really seen it playing on the airwaves, on the mainstream media at all?
Well, no. And actually, the media watch group FAIR has pointed out that if you look at the recent coverage from the New York Times, they give top dollar to the Assange scandal, their trivia about what he may or may not have done and what his role may have been in the disclosure of the unredacted, unpublished cables that are circulating on the internet right now. And they note a few instances, you know, they provide a few revelations to readers, but missing is this very, very scandalous, appalling telling of this inquiry from the UN Special Rapporteur, Phil Alston, about this raid that happened in 2006.
Yeah, can you give us a few more of the details that have been released in this cable about the raid?
Right. So in this cable, it's a communications log to the mission in Geneva, and he basically placed an inquiry asking a number of questions about information he had received about multinational forces raid going into a home. And as you said in the setup of your segment, 5 children were killed and 4 women were killed, and they were taken outside of the home, and they were lined up, and they were handcuffed. They were in handcuffs, and they were executed. And the autopsies show, you know, from the morgue, they were able to see that they were shot in the head and that they were handcuffed. And then afterwards, an airstrike came along and demolished the home. So there wasn't any evidence left for any investigators to go in, you know, such as people maybe from a human rights group like the UN, to look and examine what had happened.
What else, you know, went on there when the UN Special Rapporteur wanted to find out more of the information? Did the Pentagon at least comply with the investigation?
Well, as of right now, the UN Special Rapporteur says that he has not received any more details from his inquiry that he wanted. And he has noted that part of the procedure is flawed because there's really not much way to enforce the disclosure of information that the Special Rapporteur is seeking.
Now, you know, unfortunately, this is not the only gruesome, tragic story that we've seen from the WikiLeaks cables or from what's been released, but I feel like this has constantly become an issue, and I don't know, should we be frustrated, right? Because one of the problems you can say is the overclassification of so many documents by the government, and so you can think that an easy fix is, well, we just stop classifying everything. But here you go, we have all of these State Department cables that have been released, And yet the problem is that the media still continues to ignore them. What do you do about that?
I mean, that's a larger question of the way that media has been consolidated, of the way that you have the Pentagon, the way that you have military-industrial complex influence on the media, the way you have anchors and pundits that are incredibly deferential to the powerful who are in government, and they'll go out of their way to make sure that they don't say anything that could be construed as somehow being a risk to national security. And they'll even go so far as to point the blame at Julian Assange for uncovering details of atrocities such as this, of summary executions, of extrajudicial killings, of torture, of renditions. And they'll say that this sort of information is going to endanger people and that it's going to put people's lives at risk, when in fact, in reality, the huge problem is that we continue to carry out this activity, that we continue to have these actions carried out by military forces, and you have people in the State Department who participate in the cover-up, and you have people in the Pentagon who participate in not actually doing any investigations.
And of course, Julian Assange, always better an easy target when it comes to the sensational aspect as just a human being, or more of a celebrity these days as the figurehead of WikiLeaks. But so, in the meantime, we don't really know, because it is leading up to be a he said, she said between WikiLeaks, between The Guardian. Now they've already launched a lawsuit. We'll have to see how that ends up. But let's say, that the information is out there regardless at the moment. So do you think that this in some way could be used against WikiLeaks in the case that the U.S. is trying to build against them?
Well, I think so already. I mean, there's already been Representative Miller out of Michigan who has renewed the calls that has again called WikiLeaks a terrorist organization. And this has been a favorite mantra of some of the most right-wing people. But I'm hesitant to actually even call them right-wing, because it really doesn't matter what kind of politician. People have been really, really willing to call the WikiLeaks organization a terrorist organization. And I think that, you raise a good point. The fact that they're now being put under the microscope here for releasing unredacted, unpublished cables is really playing into the sort of plans the Pentagon might have to discredit the WikiLeaks organization. And if you note the official arguments that the Pentagon are making right now about what has happened, it sort of seems like they're painting this picture for citizens in the United States of, well, you may not like the overclassification that happens in government. You may not like the secrecy cancer that our government has. But if you put it in the hands of this Australian, this sleazy guy named Julian Assange, look at what you get. It gets out of control. And so you need to learn to just be patient, and we'll get you the details that we think you need to know.
All right, Kevin, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. And, of course, we'll continue to follow this, this lawsuit and the stories that unfold. Thanks.
Thank you.
Justice. It's not about agenda. It's not about mobilizing people. It's about dialing for corporate dollars. These two parties have sold the U.S. government and the American people to the highest bidders.